You are all welcome to AEA 507 Agricultural Risk Management class, Module 1, Unit 1, titled, I am your course facilitator, Dr. Helen Ian. We are going to consider Unit 1 of Module 1, Meaning of Agricultural Risks. Agricultural risks is referred to the uncertainty and potential threats that can affect agricultural production, income, and sustainability. This risk arises from various factors, including environmental conditions such as drought, flood, and pests, market fluctuation, policy changes, and technological changes. Understanding agricultural risks is essential for farmers, policymakers, and stakeholders to develop strategies that mitigate their impacts and ensure the sustainability of agricultural activities. The concepts and definition of agricultural risks within the agricultural sector. Agricultural risks is referred to uncertainty and potential challenges faced within the agricultural sector that can impact farming activities, production, income, and overall sustainability. These risks are typically associated with unpredictable nature of agriculture due to external factors such as environmental factors. So when we talk about the environmental factors, we are looking at the advanced weather conditions that affects agricultural production. That is the environmental risks. It may be flood, it may be drought, pest diseases, or anything that has to do in the environment. Economic risks. Economic risks has to do with fluctuation in market prices, changes in demand, and inflation. All these can influence financial stability of farmers and agribusiness. Then the next one we are going to consider is the operational risks. Operational risks has to do with the mode of operation of the farmer. What are they using? Challenges that relate to the mode of operation, which relates to farm management, such as equipment failures, labor shortage, or inefficient practice. All this hinders productivity. Then looking at the social risks or institutional risks. Institutional risks has to do with the policy of the government, regulation, trade restriction, change in government support, or subsidy that can create uncertainty for agricultural operation. Then looking at the next one has to do with the social risks. Social risks has to do with the societal or the community dynamics, demographic shifts, or conflicts can also play a role in influencing agricultural outcome. Then this risk makes agriculture one of the most vulnerable sectors to unforeseen challenges, Understanding and managing agricultural risks is a crucial factor for ensuring food security, protecting livelihood, and fostering resilient agricultural economy. Then we are looking at agricultural risks. Agricultural risks can be categorized into several types, each with distinct characteristics. Based on this source and impact, we have a brief overview of this main type. The first one here has to do with production risks. Production risks, as the name implies, arises from uncertainty in natural environments such as unpredictable weather, pests, disease, and climate variability, which directly affects crop and livestock yields. Then, as a farmer, you only know what you cultivated, the inputs you use, but you don't know what will be the outcome as a result of risks that are associated with production. Let's look at this example. This is a typical production risk. This maize plant is being destroyed by caterpillar. The farmer did not look at it when he planted it. All things being equal, he thought everything would be okay. There will not be infestation of pests that will lead to destruction of the maize plant. And if this is not taken care, addressed immediately, it will affect the whole plant. At the end of it, the farmer will lose everything. Now, let's also look at another risk, market risks. So apart from production risks, market risks also constitutes another problem in agricultural production. This has to link, market risks are linked to fluctuation in prices of agricultural products and inputs, changes in demand, supply, or global market condition, which often lead to income instability for the farmer, or income instability. Then, looking at the next one is the financial risks. This has to do with the state of finance, the income that the farmer has. This involves the ability to access and manage financial resources. Variation in interest rates, credit availability, and debt obligation can challenge the farmer's economic stability. Taking, for example, if the farmer happens to get loan from the bank, and then at the end of it, he or she is unable to pay, what will happen? If he has already given part of his asset as collateral, you see that he will, and the bank now come and then take everything. He has lost everything, including his capital, his assets. So that is a serious risk. And then another one is institutional risk. As the name implies, is a risk that has to do with policy. Policy from the government. The government may decide not to. The government may decide not to provide subsidies to the farmers. And then this also constitutes another problem. And then the trade agreement, which can also affect operation and preparation of agricultural products, and as well as profitability. Then we also look at the human risks. We'll look at the human risks and personal risks. You know, as the name implies, human beings are inherently erratic. Their characters are inherently erratic. A human being can constitute a nuisance to another farmer as a result of his carelessness in production. Then another thing is that human beings also, let's take for example, the owner of the farm happens to fall sick. And what do you think that will happen to the farm? The production will be very low. So when it arises, factors such as illness, accidents, labor shortage, those are human risks which can disrupt farm management and productivity. In the absence of labor, take for example, you as a farmer, you go into mechanized farming system, and then at the points when you needed labor to do maybe production, weeding, and so on, there are no people to do that. What do you think will happen to the farm? The farm will not produce well. Then the next risk that we will look at is the environmental risks. This has to do with immediate environment. The environmental risks can also constitute a lot of nuisance, a lot of problems to the farmer, stemming from environmental degradation, soil erosion, water scarcity, which impacts, and as well as flood. When there is excess water too, excessive rainfall will give room to flood that will also destroy the farm produce. This impacts the sustainability of agricultural practice. Each type of risk requires specific strategy and tools for mitigating and managing and management, helping to ensure the resilience of agricultural sector. So any type of risks require a specific strategy to be able to cope with that. Then we are going to consider, okay, this topic was the distinction between various types of agricultural risks. So having looked at these types of risks, agricultural risks, we are considering the content specific of agricultural risks. The context-specific nature of agricultural risks emphasize that risks in agriculture are not uniform, but varies widely based on specific conditions and circumstances. This condition can include factors such as geographic location, types of crop or livestock, farming practice, climatic pattern, method and market dynamics, and socio-economic environment. Examples of these are a farmer in a dry arid region may face severe risks from drought, while one in a flood-prone area might be more concerned about excessive rainfall. Risks associated with pest infestation, just like what I have shown you before, may differ between crops or region, depending on local pest species of that environment and ecological condition. Have you ever heard about that locust infestation on crops end up destroying everything and others? Then the third one is the market-related risks, such as price volatility, can also affect small-scale farmers, as well as large-scale commercial operations. The context-specific nature of the risks. Then significance. The significance of agricultural risks ensuring sustainable agriculture and food security. Agricultural risks hold significant importance in pursuit of sustainable agriculture and food security. Managing these risks effectively is for ensuring long-term viability of agricultural system and stable access to food for growing population. So here are some highlights, key highlights of this. The impacts of agricultural risks, that is managing agricultural risks, give room to productivity, food productivity. If this risk is properly managed, there will be high production, increase in food production. So agricultural risks such as extreme weather events, pests and diseases can severely disrupt crop yield and livestock production. But addressing these risks is crucial to maintain consistent agricultural output. That will give room to increase in agricultural output. The next one we are going to consider is the economic stability. Economic stability also has to do with fluctuation in production costs by risks, which can lead to income instability for farmers. Ensuring economic resilience within agricultural commodities or communities can help sustain livelihood and prevent rural poverty if risks are properly managed. This will give room to sustainable livelihood as well as prevention of rural poverty. Then the next one is environmental sustainability. If risk is properly managed, it will also affect but the impacts will also be on sustainability, on the sustainability will be on impacts. So risk mitigation strategies such as adapting climate smart farming practice and preserving natural resources, just as deforestation shouldn't be, then can also contribute to sustainable agricultural systems that are better equipped to withstand future challenges. Another one is access, food availability. Food availability and access can also, if risks are properly managed, it will give room to availability of food. Then minimizing agricultural risks, enhance food production, ensuring a steady supply chain, and reducing vulnerabilities to food shortage. This in turn will support food security at local level, national level, and global level. So by acknowledging and addressing these risks, farmers, government, and stakeholders can foster resilience, promote innovation, and build agricultural system that meets present and future food needs sustainability. Then another thing we are going to look at the interaction of agriculture. Then from what we have done here, we can see that the prevention before the event and after the event, it goes like this, comes like this. Then before the event was preparation for impacts, and then event impacts. You know what? If risks are properly managed, it will give room to food agricultural productivity, increase in agricultural productivities, economic sustainability, environmental sustainability. So looking at this now, prevention and mitigation is very, very important. Reconstruction. Number one here, risk assessment and planning. You have to assess first, plan it, and then pre-activities. You have to carry out survey to see what's the strategies that you use in mitigating these risks. And then the third one is emergency management and operation. Emergency management and operation. When it has to do with agricultural risks, we should not take it for granted. We need to make sure that we do the needful. And then by doing this, now you will restoration of infrastructure and services is very important in mitigating risks. And then we now reconstruct. Then you can see that prevention, preparation, recovery, responses, recovery. So that's after the impacts will be felt. So these are the impacts felt if risks are properly managed. This distinction of these risks with the interaction of agricultural risks with external factors such as climatic change, economic policies, and global trade. So we are looking at that. So now, let us start with climate change. We all know what climate change can do to agricultural production. Excessive rainfall is not to the advantage of agricultural production. Then as well as shortage of rainfall. So climate change, what climate change do is amplify the risks. Climate change is amplify the risks. Climate change amplifies the risks. Then also give room to pest and disease spread, as well as uncertainty in productivity. Then economic policy. Economic policy also has to do with subsidy and tariff. What does the government say concerning the economic policy? Subsidies and tariff. That's a policy such as subsidies or imports or export tariff can influence agricultural variability by affecting input costs or market access. Then the next thing we looked at is the inadequate supporting system. That is the absence of effective insurance scheme or disaster relief program leave farmers more vulnerable to loss from agricultural risks. Then policy inconsistency is unpredictable. Policy changes can destabilize agricultural investment and planning, creating additional risks for farmers and agribusiness. Then the global market trend has to do with price volatility. Price volatility, that has to do with fluctuation in global commodity prices, which can lead to income instability for farmers, especially dependence on export market. Then looking at that, we have supply chain disruption. Events like pandemic or geopolitical tension can interrupt supply chain, causing input shortage or limited market access for agricultural produce. Then global demand shifts. Changing consumer preference, such as demand for organic or sustainable products, can present both risks and opportunity for agricultural producers. Then the impact, interconnected impacts or interconnected impacts. This has to do with the external factors that are interconnected. Taking, for example, a climate-related event like a drought. Droughts can disrupt production, leading to price volatility in global markets. In turn, inadequate economic policy or safety nets might exacerbate financial impacts on farmers. Meaning, managing these intertwined risks required holistic approach, integrating climate resilience, sound economic policy, and adaptive strategy aligned with market dynamics. Let's look at the concept of risks to this real-world society. Concepts of risks to the real-world society. So the concepts of risks are vital in understanding how agricultural stakeholders make decisions. In real-world scenarios, this is how risks integrate into agricultural or decision making. Application in real-world agricultural scenarios. Let's look at how it can be applied. We have their first application is on crop selection. Crop selection. When we talked about crop selection, then here farmers often face uncertainty about which crops to plant based on environmental condition, market demand, and expected returns. So risk assessment helps them to select crops that balance profitability with vulnerability to advanced factors like pest and disease. Investment decision. When deciding to invest in new machineries, technologies, or infrastructure, farmers evaluate such as financial constraints, potential returns, and reliability of equipment to ensure their investment yield benefit. If they don't do that, they will be in problem. Climate resilience. Agricultural risk concepts are applied to prepare for extreme weather events. Decision on irrigation system, drought resistance crops, or flood defense are informed by analyzing environmental risks. Market strategies. Farmers and agribusiness uses risk management tools like future contracts and crop insurance to mitigate market risks associated with price fluctuation and income variability. Pest and disease control. Assessing the risks of outputs inform the adoption of preventive measures like pest-resistant seeds or regular application of pesticides. Then, land management. Risks associated with erosion, water scarcity, or over-exploitation of resources influence decision on sustainable land use practice. Then how risks influence decision making? How does risk influence decision making? Risk-based thinking drives the adoption of strategy to minimize uncertainty. Uncertainty, which has to do with precautionary measures. Have to take precautionary measures on how to prevent this. Take precautionary measures. And then farmers often prefer conservative approach to avoid significant losses, such as diversifying their crops or splitting resources across different ventures. Then adoption of technology is another decision making that can also affect agricultural productivity. Then this has to do with innovative tools like precision farming and weather forecasting system help manage risks by providing actionable insights. Then the last but not the least is the insurance and financial planning. Very, very important to mitigate risks. These mechanisms protect farmers from unforeseen losses, enable them to plan with greater confidence. Then of all this, understanding agricultural risks ensure that farmers, policymakers, and agro business make informed decisions that balance risks with opportunities, promoting sustainable and resilient agricultural practice. Please, you have to read unit 2 against our next class. See you again next week. Thank you and bye. In conclusion, understanding agricultural risk is crucial for addressing inherent uncertainty of the factors by identifying different types of risks and their interaction with external factors. Stakeholders can implement strategies that enhance productivity, economic stability, and environmental sustainability. Such efforts are essential for ensuring resilient agricultural system and achieving long-term food security for growing population. Thank you. Read Model 2 against our last class. Thank you for listening. See you next week. Bye.